Webinar today. Good morning. Welcome everybody to our webinar. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to dive in, but I'm really excited to chat with you all today about how to spot and stop data fires in the retail industry. So we're going to give a couple seconds to allow people to come on in, enter into the waiting room, and yeah, I'm really excited to discuss with you all these really interesting components to data fires, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you're an executive within the retail space, or whether you're someone just genuinely interested, how do I spot and stop data fires? This is the webinar for you. So I'm ready to kick this off. We got definitely a lot of people joining in the waiting room, excited to have you all here, excited to be discussing these topics. So topic for today, how to spot and stop data fires in the retail industry. My name is Garrett Mintz. I'm the CEO of Ambition and Motion, and I'll be guiding our discussion with an incredible panel of leaders across marketing, retail, operations, technology, and engineering. We've got four great panelists with us here today. We've got Capri Brixey. Capri is a partner at the Partnering Group. Capri brings 20 plus years of leadership experience across both retailer and manufacturer roles, including Delhaize America, Coca-Cola, KDP, as well as AI ML strategic consulting and industry leadership with the solution provider. At TPG, she works with organizations across commercial functions, leading initiatives in customer development, negotiation, joint business planning, and strategy. She also advises executives on AI, machine learning, and analytics strategy, helping organizations design approaches that translate data into measurable business outcomes. Welcome, Capri. Jason Dyer, he's the next person I want to list off here. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Chameleon Collective. With 25 plus years of experience across B2B and B2C, Jason specializes in defining clear customer value propositions, building prioritized segmentation strategies, and creating full funnel customer journeys that convert. He has built growth engines for Fortune 100 tech brands, PE portfolio companies, and startups using agile, real-time test and learn methods to deliver measurable results. Welcome, Jason.
Morning, Garrett.
Next, we've got Rakesh Sasi. He's the VP of Engineering for tsworks. Rakesh brings nearly 2 decades track record of specializing in digital transformation for the retail, CPG, and telecom industries, have hands-on experience in leading complex strategic initiatives that drive business model innovation, enhance customer experiences, and unlock operational efficiencies. He believes in aligning technology with core business goals, delivering impactful change and measurable results. In the past, he has worked for Infosys Limited and Design It. And last but certainly not least, we've got Jason Kleekel. He is the Chief Technology Officer of tsworks. He is a data strategy executive who builds cloud ecosystems that scale. With nearly 2 decades of data and analytics experience in retail and B2B industries, Jason has helped organizations achieve a better data foundation and has always championed transformation through technology and improving decision making with data. Welcome, Jason. So let's dive in. So in the retail industry, data is everywhere. Product catalogs, customer journeys, inventory files, promotion calendars. But when data goes wrong, when a product exists twice in the system, when personalization misses the mark, when stock counts are phantom, or when promotions misfire, those aren't small glitches. They're what we in TSWorks call data fires. Urgent, high impact business risks. They don't just create noise in dashboards, they destroy margin, waste trade dollars, and mislead inventory bets. Imagine duplicate SKUs leading to misaligned promos, or POS data off by just 2 percentage points. Millions can vanish from a P&L. These are all real fires that spread very fast. And who are the four culprits? The four culprits for where the data fires exist typically are products, personalization, phantom stocks, and promotions. Each one has unique risks and unique fixes. Our panelists will share a 360-degree view from business impact to customer trust to technical interventions that actually work. And we're doing this with tsworks. At tsworks, our mission is to help leaders prevent fires before they spread, balancing speed and accuracy with sustainable fixes. So everybody, welcome to this panel. I'm so excited to dive in to this webinar on this topic. So let's start with products here. This is going to be, by the way, a two-part webinar. So we're going to focus on products and personalization during this webinar. And then we're going to have a second webinar in about a month from now where we discuss phantom stocks and promotions. So I'm really excited to dive into this. Let's talk about products here. One of the most fundamental building blocks for any data fire where it potentially could occur is with products. If a product data isn't right, nothing downstream works. Pricing, promos, personalization, forecasting. Let's dig in. So I want to kick off with an initial question for Capri. From the business side, what kinds of product data issues hit the hardest? Duplicate SKUs, missing attributes, incorrect categorization? I'd be curious to learn your thoughts.
So in retail across the board, product data is the foundation that everything else rests on. If you get it wrong, the impact multiplies across pricing, promotions, forecasting, personalization. Because this audience is so diverse, think about this across the broad context of retail, whether you're talking fashion, packaged goods, consumables, general merchandise, even content. Duplicate SKUs or unmastered data are classic examples. The veracity of that data is not something that the functional business owner thinks about daily. But in practice, any anomaly, even definitions across definitions of data, what is time? Is it a day, an hour? They create misaligned promotions, issues with fulfillment, and inventory confusion. Missing attributes create big problems online where customers rely on filters and algorithms to discover products, in addition to making assortment decisions less accurate. And miscategorization is another. If an item ends up in the wrong category, wrong package group, you skew forecasts, you misprice the product, you set up promotions that don't make sense or aren't matching. And the business hit really isn't just operational, it is strategic. It conveys to the customer in a disappointing experience. That impacts your brand. It erodes trust in the internal numbers that leaders use to make strategic plans, set targets, and forecast performance. So, really, mastered and unified product data truly is the holy grail for a functional foundation. And it is a problem that belongs to everyone, business owners included. I'm sure we'll talk about that more as we go through.
No, I love that. Great insight, Capri. I want to engage the audience real quick. Post in the chat, have you ever, whether you're working in the retail industry, have you ever experienced a data fire? Or as a consumer, have you ever experienced the data fire? Post in the comments if you've ever experienced that. Post in the Q&A. And by the way, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A. We'll be sure to get to them at the end of this webinar. But man, what you're sharing about personalization, I want to maybe share a little egg on face moment of myself. In the early days of Ambition in Motion, we were running these higher ed mentor programs. We wanted to send out a message to all the mentors and all the students to let them know, like, hey, we're about to start the program. We never tested out this text messaging feature before. And I had this person who was in charge of doing outreach, and it was hi, bracket, first name, missed the back bracket. So everybody got hi, first bracket, first name, but not the actual customization. Everyone was fine with it, but it didn't look good. It wasn't a good look. And that's something that's a small touch that if you can get it wrong, it makes you look really bad. But if you get it right, it can definitely amplify the experience from your customers. So that personalization thing, Capri, you're talking about makes tons of sense. And I have personally faced the pain of making our own mistakes in data fires and that sort of fun stuff. So, Capri, I got another question for you. How do you know early on when product data is wrong? What signals tell you the numbers can't be trusted?
Well, that's a good question. And I want to point out that when you said that, you are literally the business owner of Ambition in Motion. And when I say business owner, and we talk about it throughout this webinar, I also mean the functional business owners. So if you own a piece of the business, you are the business owner. And so when I say that data belongs to every one of us, I also mean the business owners. So regarding when product data is wrong, the signals, you right there. How did you find out that that was wrong? You probably saw an email and you knew then that the customer experience was probably going to be off. So starting with data attributes, the governance, the KPI hierarchies, and ownership, as I mentioned, you rarely catch product data issues by staring at the system. And usually the functional ownership managing the data sits in a different group. So going back to those business owners, you catch them by listening to the business. This points to the need for rigor in aligning on what success looks like and conducting and prioritizing post-event analysis. So technologically or informally, this is outlier detection, right? Category swings that don't match store conditions, promo that should have driven lift under delivers, unexplained margin leakage, smoke signals. And when you dig in, it could really be market trends. It could be an outlier event, but without the transparency in the data, There is no way to draw a truly causal line. And again, even if you are the business owner and not responsible for the data, you are accountable for ensuring that your business critical elements are identified and defined within that data so that you can see those smoke signals. So observability and business driven metrics really matter. It's not just about the data quality checks in the pipeline. It's about asking, does this line up with what I'm seeing in performance in the market or in customer behavior? And when those diverge, that's your first sign that the data fire is there. Not just starting, but it's burning.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you have any suggestions? And this can be an open-ended question, not just for you, Capri. It could be for Jason, or Rakesh. But do y'all have any suggestions for, let's say, if you're watching this webinar right now, and maybe you're not the product owner, maybe you're not the business owner, maybe you're just like an individual contributor, but you can see potentially a data fire occur. And sometimes the saying I'll hear is, "That's above my pay grade," or "That's not my problem," and it's how can you go about advocating or maybe challenging that belief that it can be and really should be our problem? And how do you go about, messaging that up the chain to the leadership so then they can become more aware of these sorts of things?
Well, I mean, I will say that that comes in empowerment in an organization that has built itself in a way that values curiosity and empowerment and listening. So data is not just data. Data is also change management, it's people management, it's talent development. So if you are not actively looking at the metrics, if you're not actively looking at the outputs, if you're not actively conducting post-event analysis, and you have not empowered people to know what those comparison points are, if they're simply pulling reports and not looking for the insights, then you'll never see the data fire. So it's as much about, data is as much about the technology, the people, and the processes as it is about the data cleanliness itself.
Very nice. That makes sense. So let me ask Jason Kaliko a question here. Um, from your perspective, from a systems view, how can anomaly detection flag product data issues before they show up in the P&L?
Thank you, Garrett. I I want to take a second for acknowledging the technology people who are also watching this. Capri talked about the business side of things. I want to speak for the technology people. They're heavily invested, and I feel like they also have a significant ownership in ensuring that the retail company works fine. Okay, so my experience in the past, all of us know we have e-commerce systems that are like really powering a lot of business in the world. But behind the scenes, there are a lot of complexities to run an e-commerce system. There's a lot of technologies, there are a lot of components, and you may not know all of it. Like there was an example where we worked with a retail company where we wanted to do a landscape assessment, and we showed them the final picture of all the systems in the company, and they were like, "Whoa, we do have that many systems? We don't know that." I mean, you kind of really not realize that you have so many systems behind it. Anyway, we had this example where a large retail company, their web category management system had a glitch, or somebody went there and made a change, and the change made the entire web disappear. We had in the back end a small IT team working for them, created an automation that checks if something changed on the web categories because we were reporting on it, and our anomaly detection just immediately catch, hey, caught this thing and saying something is wrong because we are not getting any data from here. We were able to look into that, immediately found like the entire website is blank. Imagine this is a retail organization where there's 500,000 sessions a day. You can imagine an hour of that outage will be catastrophic, millions of dollars out. We were able to notify the business people. They were able to quickly make that simple change that brought it back. But I really believe, anomaly detection can help you solve a lot of those, issues that you may not realize.
Let's talk about that for a second because Jason, you bring up this really great point of it really it's not great when you discover in hindsight these sorts of things that are going on. But to a business owner, to any technical executive, you might think to yourself like do I need to invest in just avoiding these technical fires ahead of time? Like Is it that big of a deal? Like, why don't we play a little Russian roulette here with our data and see what happens? I'm teasing here, but where I'm trying to go with this is how do you go about communicating with executives the need to avoid and preventively avoid these data fires ahead of time when they're, to the perceptive eye at this juncture in time, no data fires to be had?
Uh, I'm pretty sure Jason and Capri can speak way more details about this than me here. But from my experience, I have seen small issues ignored getting into bigger problems later. There are two types of data fires in my belief. One is the highly visible one where we jump into it and fix it. But there is this kind of the fire that goes behind the scenes that nobody really notices. It is a repetitive set of mistakes, repetitive set of glitches, and people may not put that much effort to it. But I have seen that cause super serious issues in the future. I mean, companies putting millions, I mean, literally millions into fixing that eventually. That's very important that you catch this as early as possible.
Jason, Dyer, jump in on there. How do you go about communicating with the business owner and executive the need for preventative preparation, especially when it comes to data?
Yeah, I think it depends a bit on who you're talking to, right? I mean, if you're in a room with the CFO, the best way to appeal with them is numbers, right? So if you're going to launch a program, if you got a big campaign coming up, somewhere there is a goal on someone's sheet. We're going to hit this much in terms of revenue or this much in terms of product movement, for example. There's a lot of people that care about that. And so through the course of maybe getting ready for a campaign, a simple thing you can do is just implement planning. And it's going to be, hey, we're about to go live. And so now we're going to test our systems. It's a little Q&A or QA, quality assurance, right? We're going to make sure everything works. And there will inevitably, if this is the first time you're doing things, there'll be some problems. It's very quickly then to say, hey, this is what we would have lost if we weren't ready. And guess what? We surfaced this issue. It must be fixed, or this number is at risk. Most CEOs understand that. Certainly the CFOs understand that. So I mean, the best way to appeal to that audience is based on the things they care most about. One really powerful thing is very public egg on your face. And I never met a CEO that wants to be explaining to the board how this big initiative failed miserably and now the phone's ringing off the hook.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a really good point. That's a great way of doing it. I mean, I think what is the adage? People will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. And if we can discuss how can we help you avoid pain, that should be a compelling point if you faced some pain before in the past. If you never faced pain, then you're like, I don't know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Everything's gravy, everything's butterflies and rainbows.
And you can point to a lot of examples that got news coverage too. And it was easily done. And I've been a part of some of those and they are not fun.
Yeah, no, I could only imagine. Rakesh, I got a question for you. Once you detect issues, what does a fix look like in practical terms? How do you balance cleaning historical data with keeping day-to-day operations running?
That's a great question, Garrett. I think just like firefighters, the initial response is jump into that and address it as early as possible. So to do that, we may go for patch fixes. We may go into some workarounds. We may do all kind of things to make sure business is up and running. So I'll give you an example. One of the clients that we worked with in the past, there was a manual data entry issue on the product attributes. A large screen TV was of like 50 or more inches was listed as a 24-inch TV with a 10 lb weight. This actually, it's a very trivial error, right? If you look at it, it's a very trivial issue, but it created a domino effect. And what happened was their store planograms got impacted. Stores were not able to shelve the product. Their shipping and logistics got impacted because of the programs are all written based on these dimension values, right? That they do have. And then finally, customers started returning the product because of shipping delays, etc. Eventually, all the logistic rework, all the shipping problems, it impacted the brand as well as the P&L. So now here the simple fix to start with was to take the TV off the active product list, make it non-sellable, fix it, and then bring it back. Now the second step, there's a second and a third step also here. The second step would be probably go back and identify all your such products where these issues do exist. And we may have to follow a non-invasive or non-disruptive fixes that we do during off-peak hours or in smaller batches. And then we get into the third step, which is basically anomaly detection, automatic detection of these issues, preventing them, and even do applying, automated fixes. So here, when we do that, one most important thing that we have to take care is, take care of the business, but also make sure, in future you prevent that issue from happening again, which is also called as fireproofing for future.
I'm writing this note down and it makes me think what you're describing, and Capri talked about it a little bit earlier, but do y'all have any suggestions on how to build a culture of detecting anomalies? I would imagine if I'm working in data and I'm working on the tech side, I'm probably thinking to myself, if we've historically never had a culture of wanting to detect anomalies, now all of a sudden I'm detecting it, this means more work for me. And I might think to myself, well, shoot, like, what's my incentive to go ahead and detect anomalies? Have you seen any interesting or, I don't know, interesting or unique incentive programs organizations have structured so then their people are incentivized to bubble up anomalies and actually like point this out? Because the incentive structure seems off. Like if I'm in data and then it's like a Friday afternoon at 4:30 and all of a sudden I notice this anomaly and I'm like, can this wait till Monday? I might not be as incentivized to bring it up because this might be a bunch of weekend work for me. I'd be curious to know, have any of y'all seen any interesting incentive structures organizations deploy to incentivize really this culture of bringing forth anomalies?
Maybe I can give an example. I'll go the exactly opposite side of what you mentioned. Think about an holiday season. Thanksgiving is approaching now. You have your biggest 2 days for any retailer, which is Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Do you want any such issues happening during those 2 days? That is the question back, right? I think that is where the strength of all these things will come into picture. You build your anomaly detection, you detect the issues early, you're preventing yourself from major fires during holiday season. That's my take on this. I think that's the biggest incentive. And if as an IT person or as any individual contributor, right? If you are the one taking that initiative to, help your leaders, help your executives to have a peaceful time during holidays, I think there'll always be incentives to that.
Rakesh, great point. I'm so glad that you brought up the holiday season. It is coming up. And when we're talking about the retail industry and the retail space, um, I would imagine there might be some retail executives that maybe get a little heartburn when they think about making any technological change or any sort of like resolution getting a little too close. So maybe this is a question both for you, Rakesh, and for Jason Kaliko. I'd be curious to know, like, how quick can you implement new solutions for organizations? And I guess maybe the question along the lines is like, how quickly can you do it in a way where the owner or the executive can feel at ease, reduce the heartburn, feel like, okay, yes, we can still make these changes and we've still multiple days, weeks to go, and everything is looking crystal clear and amazing before Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Christmas shopping, all the things that go on, and especially in the retail industry. How quick can you work with an organization and typically see results and then be able to get them to a I don't know, a satiated point or I don't know, a status quo point where everything's working good?
I would say most companies, most retail organizations they would have already started their peak prep early in August, right? That's where they start pushing tests. There are programs that we have worked with in the past, and even right now, working with clients where we run different types of tests to see load performance of systems. Any new change that is implemented has to be tested. We have checklists that we can utilize for testing and ensuring that these systems are working accurately and they're providing the right value for the retailer way before it comes to peak. My recommendation is you should do it as early as possible, not coming very close to the November timeframe. Like try to do it between now and October, and that'll be my recommendation.
Yeah, no,
Like
that's
if
great.
you want to add to it, feel free to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess I'd be curious to know, is anybody here made any major changes within your organization, especially if you're in the retail space, you know, post in the comments. I'd be curious to know if you have any horror stories that you like to share, or any interesting scenarios where someone came in and the CEO came in and said, "Hey, we're gonna make this major change. It's November 18th, and we're gonna change the way our checkout process works." You're like, "No, don't do it." I'd be curious to know if anybody's ever experienced that. Post in the comments if you have. I'd be just genuinely fascinated. But I want to switch gears here to the second part of this segment today, and that's personalization. So products flow into experiences, and that's where personalization comes in. Retailers spend millions trying to tailor offers and journeys, but when the data behind it is off, the customer notices immediately. My favorite example within all this, you ever call your bank to, you know, whatever, take care of something, and they're like, "Please update your bank number," and you put it into your phone, and then somebody eventually answers the phone. They're like, "Okay, cool. What's your bank account number?" You're like, "I just put it in here. Why do I have to repeat this?" It's just annoying and a frustration. It doesn't feel like a personalized experience. So Jason Dyer, I want to kick you off with a question. What's the cost of bad personalization in retail? Irrelevant recommendations, missed cross-sell opportunities, churn. You know, what are the cost of bad personalizations in retail?
I mean, there's all kinds of costs. I mean, you can obviously get into what's been discussed today, which is the customer experience problem. And you know, it is extremely difficult to attract a customer in today's very, very, very competitive, very, very noisy environment. You know, there's a lot of studies that come out now about how many times you have to get in touch or engage a customer before you actually can draw them into a purchase relationship. And you're spending extensive time and energy building your brand. What does it mean? What does it stand for? And then you send an email that has bracket, name, bracket, like you said, Garrett. And I mean, it turns people off. It makes it feel like that brand does not understand me. You know, that brand affinity, that sort of desire to come back again and again, or, you know, even reach that status where people are putting the stickers of your brand on their car, for example. That's not attainable when it's bracket, name, bracket. So you have that massive brand impact. You have that lack of connection, which you spent great energy trying to earn. Worst case scenario, you offend somebody and they take to social media, and you know, people are not shy about things that they're not happy with. That's the thing you'll see more of. You seldom get the praise for the good thing that you did, of course, and for every negative sentiment that's out there, there are so many more behind it that you never hear about. They just go away. And the last point on this, I'll make another cost from a marketer's lens, is we've all been taught over the years, it will cost you triple, 25 times to earn back that customer you lost versus what it took to attract them in the first time. So keeping them, it matters.
No, that's such a good point. Yeah, that's so critical. Capri, I want to ask you, how do you measure when personalization is working versus when it's actually creating friction?
Well, I mean, the retail industry has poured millions into personalization, and for good reason. I mean, when it works, it creates loyalty, bigger baskets, stronger brand affinity. And you see it in engagement. Click-throughs go up, conversion rates improve, and repeat purchase frequency climbs. But when it fails, it creates friction fast. I mean, it is a relationship with the customer. And people in all relationships, whether it's with a person or with a brand, depend on a structure that is built on competency, consistency, and trust. So what happens when you don't have a great relationship with anyone, whether it's a brand or a person? You tune them out, you stop responding to them. So customers begin to tune out irrelevant emails, they opt out of programs, feel like the brand doesn't understand them, walk away from the brand. Every one of us has had the experience of getting offers for products we just bought or being recommended items we'd never consider. But from a business lens, the costs are wasted marketing dollars and missed opportunities. So the real risk, though, is that it trains your customer to ignore you. In a crowded market, once they start skipping your messages, it's very, very hard to earn that attention back. So the key is not just, to your point, measuring response rates or whether it's working, but measuring disengagement. How many people are turning away? That's your opportunity cost. That tells you when your personalization efforts are adding value versus burning valuable brand equity. And if you're investing money into it, you certainly want it to pay off for you. This does go back to ownership and data, governance, and success metrics. and consistency in that post-event analysis. Once your data sets are working well, this is where automation against optimization and specific goals can be built and measured. But the rigor of what is being measured or what is being automated has to be designed. As a wise person once said, you will get exactly what you design. So if you do not design it with your picture of success clearly painted, you will receive exactly those results. So if you want to say it another way, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
No, I love that. That's such a great quotes. I love that, Capri. I want to ask a follow-on. I'm a big fan of leading and lagging indicators. The question here revolves around, are there leading indicators of a disengaged customer base? Like a lagging indicator of an engaged customer base is closed deals, sales, all that sort of stuff. I could see that. But are there things that we can do to, like, are there metrics? Are there things that you look at that can give us an idea of like, oh, our customers may not have appreciated that message, or oh, our sequence of communication has not stuck the way we wanted it to? Are there things you look at? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head if there's any ways that you might be able to identify that early on as a leading indicator, so you can maybe right the ship before they fully say, you know what, you're done. I've marked your emails as spam, or I have unsubscribed, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think this is a great place for Jason to jump into, because a lot of leading indicators come with activity in the marketplace as people are engaging or before they're fully engaged with the brand. So Jason, if you want to jump in, I'm happy to cede that over to you. Of course, when you begin to measure disengagement, when people stop interacting with the brand or when they opt out of programming, that's when those are, unfortunately, I would consider that a lagging indicator, because you've already lost the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Capri. I mean, I think there are a number of leading indicators and there are lagging indicators. What I would say is, though, that business to business, sometimes it's a little bit different. So I would maybe phrase the response this way, which is this data issue. We're talking about data fires. And, it can be the things we're talking about where they're immediately losing sales, right? But it can also be a data fire is that your data is not accurate, and it's not accurate across the organization. And so you've got mixed signals, if you will, going on in the organization. And so getting that data fire put out so that the data is useful across the organization then gets to a place where that data can be interpreted. And, tsworks, obviously, this is what you guys do, is fixing that fire, but also putting people on a path to where this isn't a problem going forward. But one of the things that I've done is then, if I feel confident in that data, I'll work with a data analyst to help me look at what those signals are specific to a given business, because they do vary. And a lot of times what you're trying to figure out is not just stuff that indicates something is broken in the system, but it's a function of churn. For example, if I can model, because I trust this data, what signals come through that indicate someone's going to leave me, I can get in front of that. I can retain them. That's one of the fastest ways to growing revenue, is not losing customers.
Jason, Dyer, you bring up this great point. I got a question for Jason, Kalikal, and Rakesh. How often do you work with an organization where they brought you in for one thing, and it turns out they had major data issues in other areas? And how did you go about communicating that to them, that maybe they didn't even realize that they had these data issues? Have you ever been in a scenario like that where an organization brings you in for one thing and you're like, hey, we fixed this component of it, but it's a band-aid that we really should be patching this up in a more extensive way, because there's a major data leak or issue over here that's not presenting a challenge right now, but if we don't rectify this, could present a very big issue down the line.
I'm pretty sure Rakesh can speak way more details than this. But we have so many examples where we engaged with a customer for something that is nothing to do with data, but getting into that, we realized, wow, there's this entire, forgive me using the word mess, that somebody has to clean up, and we advise them, and they help. They listen to us. That's the real beauty, in our relationship with our clients, is we were able to convince them to, get some activity done to stop that bleeding. Maybe Rakesh, you can speak more to that.
Definitely. See, I think I'll probably try to bring a personalization example here. So we started engaging as an integration partner for one of the clients. And, here objective was to just apply data to a third party. The interesting thing was that the third party who consumed the data was not fully aware of how the data is structured. This is a data fire probably started because of a lack of understanding or lack of unifying the data very well. So what happened was, the third party actually is powering some of the personalization work on the client side. They ingested this data, they started powering the website, and what customers started seeing, they made store purchase for a product which they had browsed prior to in the e-commerce side, and they ended up having or receiving abandoned cart emails for a product which already they purchased. This is ridiculous, right? There are two reasons here. One was that the third party did not consider there is a different catalog for stores and different sales data feed for stores, and probably they had to also consume that. And we have done like several of such implementations where they started with an e-commerce implementation, probably get all the browse data using an integration from the e-commerce side, but completely ignoring the stores. And nowadays that's changing. People all the time ask about sales and returns data feed to understand the customer better, build a 360 view, etc. But these are here we started integrating as a data integrator for like just powering personalization, but we ended up cleaning up the whole data set, build a unified sales data feed. We also recommended them to go back and build a customer 360, which can then be used to publish the data out to third parties. So we have done this is your question is very true in 90% of the cases.
That's interesting. Well, I think this leads into a question that was in the Q&A area. And so we're going to do Q&A later, but I'm looking at this question right now and I'm thinking to myself, I think this is relevant. Trust in data is everything. After a new system goes live, how do you prevent data drift or a slow decline in quality? What do you build in to act as an early warning system?
I would piggyback on what Capri said in the past. You have to design it to get the best results. When you are designing, when you're implementing, you need to know which KPIs are you going to target after this. So I implement a customer 360. What am I going to look for? What is my outcome going to look like? Okay, I have so and so products that are top selling in the company. Is my sales continuing to happen like that? So that's an indicator that, or a flag that you can put in there to see if that fluctuates at any point in time. Then you would probably want to look at that. Your high value customers, are they declining at any point in time? So these are, I can say for every system, there will be probably a lot of those indicators that the companies know usually upfront that they have to put in for measuring that impact.
Yeah, no, very nice. And so I want to ask you another question, Jason. What is the impact of bad data in personalization? Can AI/ML realistically help today in making personalization both fast and accurate?
Garrett, I like what you said before. People do everything that they can to avoid pain. Right? People run into AI to feel like, okay, that may be my next helper who can relieve my pain. But what happens is you feed bad data into AI or any engine that does something nice, you're going to get something bad out of it. So I can give you an example. This is one of the reasons I really started really loving data and working with data a lot. Long back, worked with a retailer where they had a traditional, very homegrown system for Customer 360. This is way early before everybody thought about Customer 360. They implemented their own internal process. But when you have a large set of data and you have processes that are not fully tested and even that is evolving, they had a scenario where 50,000 customers were merged and you cannot even say who these people are, wrongly merged. What are you going to do with that data? You can't send any emails to any of these customers. You can't text them. You can't even reach out to them talking about their orders. You can't even operationally send them anything. It's a huge challenge. It doesn't matter whether you have AI or not, you can't do anything with that. So we ended up sitting there and cleaning that for weeks to get to really understand who these customers and fixing that. But nowadays, I want to take that second part also. There are nice AI products that are out there that can give you rules or possibilities of checking the data and then telling you if there are anomalies. And that's the part that I think companies have to take a look into, where they can really evaluate the quality of their data before they can put any kind of personalization on that.
No, I appreciate that answer. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, Rakesh, I got a question for you. When tsworks steps in, what's the practical way to stop the fire? How do you stabilize the pipeline so customers see the right product at the right price at the right time?
Yeah. So I think, again, going back to, I'll try to keep this one as a continuation of my previous point. So when customer started receiving these abandoned emails for the store items they already purchased from the store, the question is, how is this happening, right? And then with our experience dealing this type of situation, what we immediately looked up is, are they receiving the sales feed? Are the product identifiers on both these sites do they match? Are they able to join the data feed or the data from the e-commerce site all the way back to the store data? So we have a checklist by area to kind of handle these type of situations, and that's what we first get into. And then we go back and look at the whole ecosystem. We recommend, what do they really need to do to be able to scale for future. So for example, we recommended customer 360 there. The reason was that, without a customer 360, you can't really build a good customer journey, where you can predict what is the next best action for the customer, what type of emails they are interested in, what type of products they are looking for. When did they last purchase? What is their total lifetime value? When all these things come together into a single platform, that is where you get stability and predictability into personalization. And that is what every business owner, every product owner, every marketing executive would look for, to get that stability into your data sets, which can help you to then build personalized experience for the customers and get more sales.
Yeah, no, I love that. I appreciate you lining out your process. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd be curious to know, and this is not just for you, Rakesh, but this is for everybody. Why do so many big consulting projects fail to deliver ROI in retail? What makes a different model, fair pricing, no vendor lock-in, work better? This is an open-ended question to all of our panelists. Who wants to answer it?
I will
Yeah.
jump in and I will take the first part of it just because I work in consulting. So
Cool.
I can tell you, and it's stakeholder alignment, it's variable success metrics. Every single time you uncover additional problems and you struggle to appropriately iterate, I have never worked on a project that went exactly as it was scoped. Second, change management. If there is not broad alignment on what success really looks like, empowered organization, fluency across functions, collaboration, curiosity, it's unlikely to get results. So my advice is always do fewer projects, which I'm not trying to put myself out of a job, but be agile. Think about the time to implement as probably 2 times what you initially thought, and build the project to succeed a changing workforce. Meaning the people who are on this project today may not be the people that are on the project by the time it comes to fruition. Help it survive its sponsor. Brand it, socialize it, sell it internally, and see it through. So I think those are all the reasons why, but also how you can try and combat that.
Yeah, no, I love that stakeholder alignment. It's so big. How often do you hear about like a really excited CEO? He or she goes to his or her country club and hears from a friend of, oh, you should do this new consulting work. You need to do this, you need to do that. They say, oh yeah, let's do it. They bring a consultant in. The company's like, why the heck are we doing this? Like, who brought this person in? Where, what is happening? And everyone's left confused. So I think that stakeholder alignment is so critical. Jason Kalikal, question for you. How do you ensure knowledge transfer so retail teams can prevent fires without outside intervention?
Again, another part of this, let me touch a little bit on the consulting side. Consulting, engineering, and learning all have to work together to really get to success. And many a times consulting projects fail or slow down or take a lot of money and does not deliver the value because the engineering and learning aspects are not there or they don't work even close to the consulting thought process. So one of our strategies is ensuring that you give the right education to people to take it on from there, right? Okay, you solve a problem. I wouldn't call an electrician or a plumber at my home to do a black box job and then go away, right? I have a plumbing problem at my home. They come and fix it. They don't tell me anything. They give me a bill. I fix it. I don't care what was there. No, you have to explain to them what actually happened. What do you need to do to prevent this? I would say the same job for engineering and consulting organizations and teams, even internal teams, to tell this is what happened, and these are the steps that we should not or we should do to prevent this in future. That education has to be there, and I really recommend everybody to start getting into that practice of having that education.
Very nice. Jason and Rakesh, anything to add to that original question about how do we
Yeah,
I guess jump in, Rakesh.
I think see, when consulting starts, consulting engagement starts, right? There's definitely a North Star vision, but it's also very important to break down that North Star vision into multiple milestones, and maybe even to start with an MVP. With that MVP getting aligned with everyone, you are more or less iterating and developing on top of that to make it more successful. What typically happens is, the North Star vision is there, but these milestones are not measured very accurately and properly. This leads to the mindset that, okay, at the end of the project, which is 18 months out or 12 months out, you would see something wonderful. That's never the case. You need to measure the milestones very accurately and make sure they are met and they are met with quality.
That makes sense. Jump in, Jason.
Yeah, I just would add, I mean, the other thing that I think is really critical is transparency. So, Rakesh is talking about the milestones and he's 100% right. And that goes to managing expectations. And so any project like this, you have to be transparent about what you're doing, at what price, and in what time. And so it's really, really important communication and setting up regular checkpoints. Rakesh is right in the project itself, but also for those stakeholders to be regularly reminded what you're doing, why you're doing it, and where you are. And it sounds simple, but sort of the tyranny of the urgent in the daily lives of these stakeholders, they forget. I mean, how many of us today are going to go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting? I mean, shifting from one meeting to another and remembering what you talked about last time is challenging. So communication against a plan, probably more than you think you need to do, is really critical.
I love it. Well, let's dive into some Q&A. I see some great questions coming into the Q&A portion. So if you got any questions, please post it in the Q&A portion of the webinar. But here's one that came through. Anomalies are going to vary from industry to industry. So, aviation data sets versus retail versus banking versus healthcare. How do we design and produce solutions to detect these anomalies in a scalable way? And can these be applied across the industry, or would you need to tailor them for each industry? And does it even go further to a client level? Can these be scalable?
At a high level, I can take that initially here. At a high level, retail is focused on selling a product to a customer. So if you can think from that perspective, there are a lot of things that you can generalize. I'm not saying every industry is the same. I'm not saying every industry can be treated the same way as well. But these two aspects, if I am doing something to sell something to a customer, is my product, is my customer getting the right access to it? That really is, I would say, the foundation to all kind of anomaly detections over there. And then you deep dive into different systems at different industries. I can let others if they want to chime in there, but I think these two really, really matter. The data fires usually start in product, inventory, or in customer areas. These are the big three areas that we see issues happen all the time. Please.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, I think one of the best ways to get at that issue industry to industry is there are norms. There are certain metrics that on an industry are common to everybody. But fundamentally, if you want to understand which metrics you should begin with, you need to have a strategic conversation about them. And so being purposeful about the projects you're undertaking, being purposeful about what your strategic and business goals are, being purposeful about the metrics that are important to you, that might not cover all bases, but the place to start is with your intent. And that intent should be built in a strategy. And so you need a management practice that probably involves the various disciplines saying, what are our objectives over what period of time and how will we measure them? You have to start with that intent. You have to be purposeful there. Then what I said earlier about finding that there are anomalies industry to industry, and I would say even business to business, that goes with being able to, first of all, get the data, have it be reliable, do what the guys at tsworks do, make sense of this, and you can trust in it. Now you can start to get more sophisticated in understanding how you're different from everybody else and the triggers that matter to you. But first thing, start with intent, be purposeful.
I'd love to add something there too. And just to add on to what you said, Jason, that is so true. We like to talk about, KPI hierarchies, and that is what are your data business critical elements. And if you can't get those from across function, then something can be, to your point, other Jason, Jason Kalikal, you said something can be running exactly as it's designed and still be creating a data fire. And that's absolutely true. So when you start with design, it has to be collaborative across the business. And the people who are the end users of that data need to identify what it is that they need to see in the beginning. And more than that, they need to define what is a day, what is volume, is it eaches, is it units, is it equivalized cases? What is the definition of that metric that you're trying to define? Because it needs to serve the business owner from the time that the data is cataloged to the time it is used in any analytics for them to be able to make decisions based on it.
Jason, Jason, thumbs up. Okay, another question we've got. What kind of roles or skill sets do organizations need to hire or establish in order to take accountability for these data fires and ensure data quality is maintained? Similar to internal versus external auditors that exist for accounting practices.
From a technology standpoint, I can answer that, and Jason, Rakesh, and Capri can add to it. I think you want to hire people who are enthusiastic to learn in terms of technology and data. Understanding the business part of the data is very important. We always see people looking at it as a silo, right? Hey, I'm looking at this report. This report is what I'm looking at. When I don't get out of that. But this report means nothing to you if you don't understand the business. The business connected with the data is the whole driver, and I think that's what I really encourage companies to start looking into the talent that they want to look for. People who can understand your business from the data. That'll be what my recommendation.
Very nice. Anybody want to add to that?
I'd love to add a little bit to that. Oh, go ahead, Rakesh. Yeah, go ahead.
No, just one point to add here. See, people who believes in the philosophy that your data assets are your growth levers, those are the great assets that you can really have. Because if you understand how data can be utilized, you're going to open up a infinite amount of opportunities and possibilities that you can have. It could be starting with this anomaly detection, or it could be starting to do personalization, or it could be even a new business opportunity or a new business proposition itself. That's what my take is.
That's great. I was simply going to add, and it works with that, it builds on that as well. I always make an argument for cross-pollination across your organization. So as you bring talent in and you develop them, help them see the business from a higher level, from end to end on that value chain. So bring people into different functions and be committed to training, leadership training, so that people can move across functions, and it will give them greater fluency, and it will help the entire organization. So it's my plug for cross-pollination across functions and in organizations.
I love that. You know, we've got a lot of questions. I want to take one more question through here and go from there. But I love the amount of engagement we have on this webinar is amazing, and I guess that means we'll have to see you next time. But the last question I have is, if you were advising a retail CFO today, what's the single move to prevent a multi-million-dollar mistake?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to harp on this again, and I think this is probably where Jason is going to go as well. Plan, get in front of it. I think the death of business outcomes is assumption, and the tyranny of the urgent drives more assumption than anything else. Or you outsource and don't pay attention. And so this goes back to that communication and engagement point. I mean, number one thing I would say is, first of all, get in front of it. Have a rigor for planning that includes testing. You need to test much earlier. I've been writing some about August is planning and testing month. I highly encourage that.
Thank you, Jason. I want to add to that with one example there. We work for a retail company where they had so many glitches in their product data that they eventually spend $100+ million. And I'm not making up any of these numbers. This is real money that they had to spend to just fix the data problem, because it was just huge for them to otherwise go ahead. So right now, I really recommend that if you have continuing data issues in your ecosystem, whether it's in the product data or inventory data or anywhere that you can see that recurring data issues are happening, you want to engage and look into that as quickly as possible before it eats up your P&L in a short period of time, especially before peak season starts.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well,
I can just add one last point there. I think typically what people try to do is address the smaller issues with a small fix or a patch addressing that particular problem. Now, when these issues grow and you are always in firefighting mode, you never get into strategy. You never start thinking about your P&L, your growth strategies, etc. So my recommendation there is, adding on to Jason's point, if there are recurring issues, you need to pay attention, because that is hindering your growth and your P&L eventually.
Amazing. Everybody, great insights. What a good webinar. I feel like we covered so much ground today. Capri, Jason, and Rakesh, this has been great. Thank you for bringing your perspectives from marketing, business, tech, and engineering. And thank you for our audience for joining us today and enjoying this engaging discussion. If you like this, we're going to do another webinar on this in a month where we're going to cover promotions as well as phantom stocks. So we'll jump into that as well for our subsequent webinar after this. Remember, a data fire isn't just a technical glitch, it is a business risk. But with the right strategies, retailers can spot and stop them before they burn profits. So this has been how to spot and stop data fires in the retail industry. We hope you leave with some ideas to safeguard your business. Thank you for your time, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.